It's Jose with Oakland Latinos United, aka Oakland Latinos Unidos, on here with a new video for you guys to enjoy. Well, the video I'm going to do today is another Chicano Bay Area rap history video. I did one a while back about Darkroom Familia. So now I'm going to do another one that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and this is a video about the Funky Aztecs, the history of the rap group from Vallejo, California, the Funky Aztecs. And I've been talking to Merciless, who is one of the members of the Funky Aztecs, one of the founding members, and basically he's been giving me clecha on how the group started. We've been talking on IG, so basically with his blessing and his permission, he's given me the Funky Aztec story to do on this video by Oakland Latinos United. You feel me? So you're gonna hear stuff that you probably never knew about the group. We're gonna go in a little depth about the history of the group, and yeah, man, it's gonna be a good video. And this one, like I said, this is one of the first Chicano rap groups from the Bay Area that I ever personally heard, and this was back in like 90, 91. You feel me? And yeah, let's take it back to 1982 in Westside Vallejo. You know what I mean? Back in those days, Merciless, who's this dude right here, and his brother Indio, were out there in Vallejo, Westside Vallejo. They grew up around the area of Florida and Marin Street, and also he told me they used to live in the Marina Vista apartments. Merciless told me that he used to hang around the bus stop at York Street. You know what I mean? They used to hustle and hang around there. And, you know, I know that area real well. I know what bus stops he's talking about. And basically the west side of Vallejo, near downtown, is where he grew up, him and his brother Indio. Now, he told me that back in 1982, his brother was going by a name Almighty Rick, and he was a rapper. He started rapping in 1982. This is way back in the days, in the early days of West Coast hip-hop. You know what I mean? Rap was barely starting to hit the Bay Area at the time. And, you know, a lot of dudes were innovating Bay Area rap, including Too Short. You know what I mean? But it looks like Merciless's brother from the Funky Aztecs, Indio, which is this dude right here, started rapping in 1982 around Vallejo. Now, Merciless told me back in those days in Vallejo, nobody was really rapping. A lot of people were breakdancing, a lot of people were hustling, you know what I mean? A lot of people were pop locking. You know, he says it was all about, you know, the different sides of town, the Central, the Crest side, the Hillside, you know what I mean? South side, Bridge side, and whatnot, you feel me? West side. And that's what Vallejo was about. And he told me it was pretty mixed growing up in Vallejo. He told me there was Chicanos, Raza, blacks, whites, Tongans, Filipinos. He told me it was a mix of people, you know what I mean, in the V-Town. Now, he told me that around 1984, his brother recorded a cassette single. His brother was going by the name Almighty Rick. And this was around 1984. And he said he started selling them for like $5 around the city. And obviously this gave him a little hood status, a little fame or ghetto fame around the hood, around the barrios of Vallejo. You know what I mean? So you got to understand, this is way back in the days before even probably E40 and those guys were rapping. You know what I mean? So these dudes were already innovating stuff in Vallejo. You feel me? And nobody knows this story, you know? And yeah, at the same time, he told me that basically everyone was out there breakdancing and pop locking, but no one was really rapping. Now, I do know that there was another rap group that came out around 1983-84 called the Lover Twins. You know, and you can find them on YouTube. But yeah, he told me that his brother Indio recorded under the name Almighty Rick, recorded a album. You know, not an album, but a little single, and he sold around the town. Now, Merciless told me that by the late 80s, his brother Indio had formed a group called the Dynamic Duo, and Merciless himself joined a mostly black rap group called BRP, which meant Bum Rush Productions. And basically, he says they were doing a little noise around Vallejo and around the Bay Area. And he told me around this time, they met a dude named AJ, who became their manager. And he said that this was also around the time that Public Enemy, groups like X-Clan, and Boogie Down Productions were doing rap, and they were doing pro-black conscious rap, you know what I mean? Black power rap. And Merciless told me he was inspired to want to do maybe some Chicano conscious rap, some Chicano power rap. And he says that their manager AJ also told him that it would be a good idea to make something like that. Merciless told me that at the time he was also reading a lot about the Chicano movement, the Brown Berets, the Movimiento, Cesar Chavez, and whatnot. You know what I mean? So he began to educate himself about La Raza. So he said around that time, late 80s, he says that basically his brother Indio, or Almighty Rick as he was going at that time, who had a group called Dynamic Duel, left that group, and Merciless left his group, BRP, Bum Rush Productions, and they hooked up with this homie right here, who was Sapo. Now, Sapo was a break dancer and a pop locker who dressed like a cholo from Central Vallejo. You know what I mean? And they met him through their manager, AJ. They said he was a local kind of celebrity in Vallejo because everyone in the V-Town knew him because he was a breakdancing cholo, basically. And they hooked up with him, and they began to become really good friends of his. And they basically formed a group talking about Chicano consciousness. He told me that they did a lot of shows around the Bay Area. He says sometimes they were too young and they wouldn't even let them go into clubs, but they began doing car shows. He told me they did a show with Action Pack Gangsters, which is a rap group from North Oakland. You know what I mean? And basically, they started making a name for themselves. Well, through their manager, AJ, they hooked up with TNT Records, which was owned by a guy named Antron. And TNT Records had Shock G signed to their label. And Shock G at the time was with Digital Underground. They also had Money B and his group Raw Fusion and Tupac. And we'll talk about how Tupac comes into the picture. And basically, Merciless told me that they had a group but didn't have a name. And he came up with the name Funky Aztecs, the FAs. And the rest is history. Now, through TNT Records, they recorded their first album that was released in 1991, and that was Chicano Blues. And this is this album right here. And as you can see, this represents North and Sur unity. Because you got to remember, this is early 90s when the North and Sur stuff on the streets was heavy, you feel me? And basically, the song had classics like Chicano Blues, Barrioism, Ribbit, XIV, X-Tray, KJ, Salsa con Soul Food, Nothing Else Matters, and various songs, other songs, What's Love, What's Love, that with ALT, and I had this album, that was one of the first albums of the Funky Aztecs I had, and I had it in 1991. My brother told me about it, and basically my brother heard about them because he was hanging around, with the 36 locals homies, and they were cool with the 38 homies, and basically through AJ, AJ was married to the sister of a homie from 38 named Zach, aka Joker, and he drew the this emblem right here for the Funky Aztecs. So yeah, a homie from Oakland from 38, which I know him real well. Zach, that's the homie Zach Joker, who drew the Funky Aztecs emblem. And as you can see in this picture right here, the Funky Aztecs was kicking it with all the homies from 38. There's Sapo, there's Merciless, you feel me? And there's the homies from 38 locals. They were doing security for them and going with them to different car shows, back in the days. And there was an Oakland connection like there always is to this story, you feel me? And, the Funky Aztecs went on to make a name for themselves. They were doing shows. They were on TV shows. They were on different channels like Soul Beat with their Gary Baca. And there are various other stations out there that were putting them out there. You know what I mean? Their album was selling. And one historical thing that they did was on their first album, he told me the story of how they make Tupac. Now, the claim to fame the Funky Aztecs have is that they were one of the few, if maybe even only Chicano rap groups that I know of that recorded with Tupac. I could be wrong, but from what I know, they're the only one. And he told me the way they make Tupac was when they were with TNT Records. He told me that Merciless told me that they were connected to Digital Underground, and this is the time, early 90s, when Tupac was writing with Digital Underground. You know what I mean? And he said basically when the Funky Aztecs would go to the studios to record, he told me they were recording out of place called Starlight Studios in Richmond. They would bring hella homies from Vallejo, homies from Oakland, hella cholos and lowriders. They would have barbecues, fat functions at the recording sessions. And he said Tupac would come to record his albums and he would see this. And he said he got inspired by it. That he liked what he's seeing. Like, he was like, wow, I didn't know you Mexicans and Chicanos get down like this. And he says that basically Tupac became a homie of theirs. You know what I mean? He liked the lowrider scene and liked what he's seen. He says that also he got inspired by the Chicano tattoos that a lot of the homies of the Funky Aztecs had. You know, I'm not sure if Tupac had all the tattoos that he had later on, but this could be where he got the inspiration from Chicanos in the Bay. But yeah, he says that basically through TNT Records, they became cool with Tupac and they recorded the song Salsa con Soul Food. You know what I mean? And that song, I think, has Money B. I think it has Shock G also on it, and a few other homies from Digital Underground. And that was on their first album. You know what I mean? Salsa, and on Chicano Blues, Salsa con Soul Food. And you could probably find that on YouTube. And yeah, man, that's straight up Bay Area Chicano history right there. You feel me? Tupac and the Funky Aztecs. Now, in 1995, the Funky Aztecs recorded their second album, Day of the Dead, and they did that through their record studio called Backstreet, because I guess they had a falling out with TNT Records, and they formed their own thing called Backstreet Records. So they recorded this album in 1995, Day of the Dead. I had this album when it came out. You know what I mean? And it had a remix track of Salsa con Soul Food called Slipping into Darkness with Tupac's verse in it. You know what I mean? But the song has some bangers, you know what I mean? It had, you know, Living Forever. It had Mr. No Mercy. It had Cholo No Llores, Don't Cry. You know, it had Connections. It had a lot of songs on it, man. Mr. No Mercy, that was one of my favorite songs, you know what I mean? 85 style, that old school feeling. Old school feeling, got the funk now. You know, it just had bangers on it. You know what I mean? But by this time, the Funky Aztecs went independent. You know what I mean? This album got released, distributed through Mercury Productions. And yeah, their record company was called Backstreet Records. You know what I mean? That was the second Funky Aztecs album. You know what I mean? And the Funky Aztecs also went on to work with a lot of other rappers. You feel me? They went on to work with right here you can see Baby Bash, another Chicano who came out of Vallejo. They did albums with his crew, you know what I mean? When he was especially when Baby Bash was with Latino Velvet, you know, Merciless and the Funky Aztecs also went on to record with N2 Deep, you know, Player JT, who's half white Mexican, who's also from the V-Town, you feel me? And, yeah, the Funky Aztecs recorded with a lot of people, you know what I mean? They did a lot of things, you know, they were innovators for sure, you know what I mean? And, yeah, they, like I said, during the time when I was young, you know, they did their thing, you feel me? So basically, let's go back to 1999 when they recorded their last album, Funky Aztecs Addicted. That was the last production that the Funky Aztecs ever did. You know what I mean? I had that album, and it was a pretty cool album. You know what I mean? Sapo wasn't on it no more. You know, it was Indio, and it was Merciless and a few other cats. You know what I mean? I think Baby Bash was also on this album. If I want to say Player JT was on it too. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's basically the story of the Funky Aztecs. Merciless told me that basically after this album, the group kind of dissolved. You know what I mean? People went their own ways. There's Merciless and Sapo nowadays, how they look now. You know what I mean? Merciless told me he lives in Texas now. There's Merciless and Baby Bash. You know what I mean? Merciless told me he lives in Texas now. He told me that he still records some music here and there. You can find some of his music online on YouTube. You know, he goes under the name Merkman, I think, or Mad Merkman, I think he told me. And yeah, man, that's basically the history of the Funky Aztecs. You know, a rap group that I think doesn't get its fair share of fame or credit, but they were definitely innovators, you feel me, from the Bay Area. Like I said, that was one of the first Chicano rap groups that I ever heard in the Bay Area, you know what I mean? And this was back in the 90s, you feel me? But yeah, hopefully you guys like that video, that history of the Funky Aztecs, you know what I mean? Hey, I hope they have a reunion one day. I hope Merciless does more interviews and puts that story out there, because there's even more to the story I didn't put on here, you know what I mean? But I just gave a quick little breakdown of the history of the FAs, you know what I mean? But I'm gonna leave a link to Merciless's IG on the link on the down below if you guys want to get a hold of him, you know what I mean, or want to hear any of his music, you know. But yeah, man, the Funky Aztecs, no matter what you say, man, they're Bay Area Chicano pioneers in this rap game, you feel me? They opened doors and they started a lot of things in Vallejo and in the East Bay and Bay Area for Chicanos, for sure. So yeah, we got to give them their credit where credit is due, you feel me? And, you know, Merciless says he's a private man and he doesn't really put himself out there no more. But hey, Merciless, you were an inspiration to a lot of us, bro, including me. You know what I mean? I grew up on your music. And, yeah, to me, it was like the FAs, the Funky Aztecs was like the shit to me when I was a youngster. You feel me? But, yeah, man, leave a message. Tell me what you think. You know what I mean? Did you know any of this history of the Funky Aztecs? You know what I mean? Did you even know about this rap group? You know, leave it in the comments. Like, subscribe. Oakland Latinos United. Jose, I'm out. Late.